Judge Dubose. Am I saying your name right?
That's correct, Senator.
Okay. Are you still a Marxist?
Thank you for the question, Senator.
You don't have to thank me. We'll say
I
you are welcome.
I am not, nor have ever been a Marxist.
Well, you gave an interview in 2000 to the feminist press. In fact, you didn't turn it over to us. We had to ask for it. We found it on our own. And you did then turn it over to us. And this is what you were describing your time working in a coffee shop. You said, quote, the kids would come into the cafe all the time. We'd talk about what they're doing. We'd talk about their classes. And I was in my Marxist phase. So you used to be a Marxist, but you're not now?
No, Senator, if I may, the context of the first of that interview, I had no idea that that interview was something that was going to be published. I did an interview with the
Did you mean what you said, whether it was published or not, or whether we'd find it? Trying to understand what you believe. You said I was in my Marxist phase.
Thank you, Senator.
Still in your Marxist phase, or was that in the past?
No, Senator, if I may explain.
Sure.
I was a political science major. When I graduated from college, I immersed myself in a ton of political theory. I read Hobbes, I read Locke, I read Rousseau, I read Marx. I went through a phase where I was into Eastern religion, where I read the Tao Te Ching, the Analects of Confucius. So I suspect, and I don't know that quote with the article, I don't know if she was referring to what I was studying at the time, but as a political science major and as a theorist and someone who was considering teaching a course in political theory, I immersed myself in those things.
But she didn't refer to anything. She, meaning, I assume you're referring to the reporter who interviewed. These are your words, and you didn't say I'm in my Hobbes phase. You didn't say, second, I'm in my Locke phase. You didn't say I'm in my Rousseau phase. You said I was in my Marxist phase, and my question is real simple. Are you still a Marxist?
Senator, I've never been a Marxist, and I'm not a Marxist today.
Okay. All right. Have you ever served as lead counsel in a federal bench trial?
No, Senator. With my experience as both a state prosecutor, as an in-house counsel at Schneider Electric, doing very complex compliance and regulatory work, and my work as a district court sitting judge, handling general jurisdiction.
Yes, ma'am. I've read your resume. I just want to get through these questions. Have you ever served as lead counsel in a federal jury trial?
No, Senator, I have not.
Okay. Have you ever attended a federal jury trial and
No,
watched
Senator.
it live?
No. No, Senator.
Have you ever watched a federal jury trial on TV?
I don't believe that federal trials are televised, so no, I have not, Senator.
Have you ever watched any trial on television?
Senator, I handle and preside over trials every single day as a state district court judge. We follow the rules of evidence, criminal procedure, civil procedure. So I feel that with my experience, that I am well suited and capable to make the transition from our state district court to our U.S. district court.
Okay. When you were practicing law, did you ever draft a motion or a brief applying the federal rules of evidence?
No, Senator. As a state prosecutor...
I'm sorry, you said what?
I said no, Senator.
No, okay. When you were practicing law, did you ever draft a motion or a brief applying the federal rules of civil procedure?
Well, I believe that there were times at Schneider Electric giving advice to business units regarding the federal acquisition regulations, that I would draft briefs to give them counsel as to how to be compliant with the federal rules. So in that respect, the answer would be yes.
Okay. What's an interpleader action?
Interpleader action is a third party who's going to intervene in a civil suit. They're not a primary party.
Okay. What's voir dire?
Voir dire is the process with which jurors are questioned by the state and by defense and prosecutors to serve on a panel.
Have you ever conducted a voir dire in federal court?
Not in federal court.
Okay. I'm going to yield back 6 seconds, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Whitehouse.
Just to clarify the record, Judge Dubose, do you recall when that interview was done, the interview that Senator Kennedy referred to?
No, Senator, I don't. And if I recall, and I was brought to my attention yesterday, that was never an interview that I did that was I thought was going to be published. I never reviewed it. I didn't. It was an undergrad student who was interested in teaching, who spent 20
What
minutes.
were you doing at the time?
I was teaching.
So this was before you even went to law school. This was
Yeah, I was. It was
many,
really
many,
early.
many years ago.
It was, Senator.
Perhaps during the time when my colleague Senator Kennedy was a Democrat. Showing that people can change their views, even if it were true that you were then in a Marxist phase.
Senator Graham?
Mr. Chairman, my name was invoked.
I noticed.
As a proud Democrat, we were like
My
that part of
name
your
was
history.
invoked, Mr. Chairman. Now, I just want to let the record reflect, and I love Senator Whitehouse.
Uh-oh.
But I'll tell you one thing, I've never been a Marxist. I've never been a Marxist. And I've never admitted I was a Marxist and then not turned the document over to this committee. We had to find it. And we did. And now your testimony, the testimony under oath today is, I didn't say that. The reporter said that. No, the witness said that. And then the testimony is, well, I didn't mean it to become public. That's not the issue. So, if we won't get personal here, we can.
Senator Graham?
Thank you. Let's agree on the following. A Louisiana Democrat's probably not a Marxist. But the bottom line is, why wasn't it available to the committee, Mr. Poe?
Thank you for the question, Senator. I had no idea that the article existed. When I did the interview with that undergrad student, it was for a paper for a class.
It's something you didn't know about.
I was in an interview with a young lady who was interested in teaching as an undergrad, and I was just sharing my transition, how I went to be into teaching.
I understand. Your testimony is, this is not something I've seen before. Had you seen it before?
No, Senator.
Okay, so if you hadn't seen it, you didn't know about it, so that's why you didn't turn it over.
That's correct.
Okay, just make sure of that. Mr. Ali, is that right?
Yes, Senator.
You were head of the MacArthur or Associated MacArthur Justice Center, is that correct?
That's right, Senator. I've been with the organization, yes.
Okay, and what role did you play there?
Well, initially, about 7 years ago, I started with the organization to open its DC office just as an attorney there, as the first attorney there. And then I was later promoted to be the director of the DC office. And then beginning at the very end of 2021, beginning of 2022, I've become the executive director of the organization.
Are you pretty familiar with the work of the organization, I would assume, right?
Yeah, Senator, we're a pretty large, medium-sized firm that is litigation-focused. Right. And so we have, at any given time, hundreds of cases. But yes, I'm familiar with the general work of the organization, of course.
So I'm reading an article here that talked about a spokesperson described after the George Floyd episode, terrible thing that happened for the country. You said, or some spokesperson said, you want to lead a movement toward making police departments obsolete, that the group lobbied the New Orleans City Council to pass a resolution committing to sharp reductions in law enforcement in the city's 2020 budget and redirection of those funds to housing, healthcare, education, among other priorities. Is that accurate?
Senator, a colleague of mine actually sent me that article in advance of this hearing. Yeah. Colleague was surprised by it. Needless to say, I was surprised and quite disconcerted by it. Okay. I could tell you, Senator, that I looked into those events. All of those first took place before I was ever executive director of the organization.
Were you a member of the organization then?
I was in the D.C. office. None of those events described took place related to the D.C. office.
So do you disavow those statements?
Well, Senator, yes, absolutely. The organization, let me be very clear about this. I have never advocated for taking away police funding. I would not take that position. The MacArthur Justice Center has not taken that position. I think that's why this colleague sent it to me surprised. That's why I was disconcerted and actually looked into this. I can say very clearly I had no role.
So that's not you. I mean, you disavow the comments that were made in this article by some spokesperson before you got there, before you became executive director.
Senator, I do not believe law enforcement is or should be obsolete.
Okay, or defunded.
Or defunded.
Okay. The organization apparently also called for dismissing all charges against rioters from the protest in Chicago. Black Lives Matter uprising. Are you familiar that the organization called for that?
Senator, again, I didn't have any personal involvement in that. That was before my time as being executive director.
When did you become executive director?
It was in December of 2021.
Okay. So I think the riots occurred in 2021. Are you familiar with the position of the organization asking the mayor of Chicago to drop all charges against the rioters?
Senator, only because I read it in that article that you're referring to.
But it's news to you until then.
That's
until
right.
This article.
That's right. And as I said, I looked into it.
Well, let's put it this way. If you're a part of the organization and it's news to you that the organization wanted, what would we say if somebody came up and said, I want everybody in January 6th to be let go? I don't. I want them to be prosecuted because I think they broke the law. So I guess my point is there comes a point that this organization has done some pretty radical things. You never heard about the position of telling the mayor of Chicago to let them all go?
Senator, let me be very clear that I understand fundamentally that the position I've been nominated for is to leave all advocacy behind.
My question is, did you know? And if you didn't know, how could you not know?
Well, Senator, at the time, I was an attorney in the D.C. office. I had no oversight over that.
I don't need to belabor the point. My time's over. And here's the point. You're becoming executive director. Somebody saw you as promotable. Okay? They want to promote you. This organization's taking some pretty extreme views. You say you don't know anything about it except you read this article. It's hard for me to imagine promoting somebody, an organization that calls for all the rioters to be let go in Chicago, and the person they're promoting doesn't share those views.
Senator, what I can say is that I've worked closely with law enforcement on these issues, and as I discussed before, it's actually been a bridge-building, coalition-building process working with organizations
Thank you very much,
across the
sir.
spectrum. Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Hawley?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations to all the nominees. Thank you for being here. Mr. Ali, if I could just come back to you, I want to follow up on what Senator Graham was asking because I didn't hear all of your answers. I just want to make sure that I understand where you are on these issues. So just to set the table here, you're the president and executive director of the MacArthur Justice Center. Is that correct?
Senator, that's correct. I have one other disclosure for you, which is that I'm also a 49ers fan.
Oh,
and
no.
So I'm just apologizing in advance for what Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel will unleash on your Chiefs this Sunday.
Oh, my gosh. Here we go. All right. I'll come back to that. So let's just clarify some things you said to Senator Graham. So your organization, the MacArthur Justice Center, has expressed support in the past for the defund the police movement. I'm looking here at public statements, public comments that the organization has made, calling for defunding the police, hashtag defund the police. Here's one. Here's the second one. I know you're familiar with these. And I thought I heard you say to Senator Graham that you disagree with this, that you do not support defund the police. I just want to make sure I got that right.
Senator, that's right. I have never taken that position, nor would I, for any number of reasons. One of which I'd like to say is that I work closely with law enforcement on these issues of accountability, public safety, and confidence in law enforcement.
Okay, good. So to the extent that the center has in the past taken this position, that does not reflect your views and doesn't reflect your leadership. Is that fair to say?
That's right. So much so that I looked into that and tried to figure out how that hashtag, I understand there was an article describing 2 tweets that had been made, looked into that, and I'm still to this day puzzled how that happened. But they were before my time as executive director.
Well, you say puzzled why the center expressed those views. Is that what you're saying?
To my knowledge, the center itself has never taken the position of defund the police.
Okay, and you disagree with that position. You disagree with the defund the police position. Okay, let me ask you about something else I think Senator Graham was touching on. My understanding is that the MacArthur Center asked the Chicago State Attorney's Office to dismiss all the charges against rioters following the BLM riots in the summer of 2020. Do I have that right? And if so, do you agree with that?
Senator, my understanding of that circumstance is that the attorneys in that office, I wasn't a part of that office at the time, represented individuals who were peaceful protesters and represented community groups. And so that letter took place in the course of advocacy that I wasn't personally involved in, so I'm not intimately familiar with the fact.
Okay, you would not support, though, dismissing charges against rioters who committed acts of vandalism, violence, etc., as a general matter?
Senator, I believe that people who are a risk to public safety need to be accountable and need to be held pending those charges if they're a risk to public safety. And I understand the law to require that.
Let me ask you, since you said pending, my understanding is the MacArthur Center also opposes pretrial detention. Is that right?
Senator, so let me be very clear. I believe that if somebody is a risk to public safety, they should be held. And federal law requires that. The Bail Reform Act requires that, in addition to some other considerations. And if confirmed to be a federal district court judge, I would apply that law without reservation.
So I got you. So just the center, though, am I wrong? They don't oppose. Your center does not oppose pretrial detention. Am I wrong about that?
Senator, there's no categorical opposition to pretrial detention, as I understand it. The United States Supreme Court has been very clear that someone cannot be detained solely on account of their poverty. But to my knowledge, the Justice Center's position has been that if someone is found to be a risk to public safety, then detention is warranted under the law.
And what about the use of electronic monitoring of defendants? Does the MacArthur Center oppose that?
Senator, again, my understanding of federal law is that the supervised release provision.
Well, but I'm asking about the center, though. I'm familiar with federal law, but the center that you're the executive director of, I just want to clarify. I want to make sure I understand what your positions are.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Senator. So I haven't personally worked on a case involving electronic monitoring. I can tell you that the center is not a policy organization. We don't have a single employee in our organization who takes policies. All of our work is grounded in litigation, in a client.
Okay, let me ask, I don't mean to interrupt you. I mean, I do mean to interrupt you, but I don't mean to be rude about it. I'm almost out of time. Let me just ask you this. The director, as I understand it, of your Illinois office referred to electronic monitoring as replacing one form of incarceration with another. Does that reflect your views or the views of your organization? How about, does it reflect your views? Let's just get to that.
Senator, I'm not sure I fully understand what that would mean under federal law. I can tell you that the Bail Reform Act, the Sentencing Reform Act, and the supervised release provision require supervision in certain circumstances, first and foremost, when there is a risk to public safety and a need to protect the public.
Well, my time's expired, and I know that there are other colleagues here who want to ask you questions. I appreciate your answers. This is helpful. My concern has been that the center that you're the executive director of seems to take positions to me that seem, frankly, a little extreme. So maybe those aren't your positions. I'll give you some more questions for the record. I was so nice to you, even though you're a 49ers fan. It's horrible. But the Chiefs, I know I was really nice. The Chiefs are going to win by 10, at least. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We'll watch together.